coming up on a special edition of OU Nightly. Hear from local leaders and candidates about their plans if elected. Plus, an Oklahoma congressman breaks down his goals if re-elected as chair of the House Appropriations Committee. And breaking down the ballot, hear about the state questions that could impact you. This is OU Nightly.
Thank you for watching this special election edition of OU Nightly. I'm Savannah Simmons.
And I'm Abigail Franklin. Tonight you'll hear from local elected leaders and candidates on their goals if elected on this Tuesday's general election.
We'll also take you through several ballot measures up for vote and discuss how record early voting numbers could impact this year's race. Up first tonight, Representative Annie Menz faces Republican challenger Matt Watson in House District 45, which represents portions of Northeast Norman. OU Nightly sat down with Representative Menz. Abby has the full interview in the Election Center. Abby?
Yeah, that's right. We sat down with her in studio earlier this week to talk about some of the biggest issues in her district and her plans if re-elected. I've seen that you have supported some legislation when it comes to, getting landowners' rights, and in particular making sure they're protected from eminent domain. So talk to me a little bit about how you're going to keep continuing supporting those things to ensure that OTA is not going to come back to Norman. And with like Thunderbird being in your district, how are you going to ensure that the watershed is protected?
Sure. So that's a really great question. I was at the city council meeting on Tuesday with my constituents. I didn't speak at that one. There was one prior that I did speak at. Just because there was some pretty ugly narratives flying around about my constituents, and I won't stand for that. So this is a statewide issue, and we also just need to bring OTA under further legislative oversight. They don't have to go get reelected. They don't have to listen to anybody but the person who appoints them, and so we end up, whenever that happens, we end up with kind of like a runaway entity. So what we need is more legislative oversight for the Turnpike Authority. And if that comes in the form of a task force or, retooling their statute, then that's what we need to do.
If you were re-elected, how do you plan to further supporting public education? That's one of your, main points of your campaign. Supporting public schools. Could teacher pay raises be a part of that?
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with funding, expanding the funding that we already are giving. I would like to see a larger increase for teachers, and I would also like to include support staff in that. So that's, lunchroom staff, that's bus drivers, that's paraprofessionals and all of our special ed teachers. I would like to see a large raise for the support staff. I have a lot of them in my district. And so things like that. I also have been, since day one, since I got elected, one of my main issues has been expanding the free lunch program in schools because hungry kids can't learn.
Sure.
All of that said, I'm not sure how much good it's going to do until we do something to rein in Ryan Walters and his school board.
Representative Menz is running for re-election in District 45. And if re-elected, this will be her first re-election.
Now, on the other side of the race for House District 45, OU Nightly's Michael Buchanan sat down with Republican candidate Matt Watson.
Michael, what kind of plans does Watson have for voters in House District 45?
Yeah, Watson spoke significantly about how his background in the Marine Corps and experience in the private sector could help better represent his constituents if elected.
Yeah, I think it uniquely places me through the subject matter expertise I have in cybersecurity, and then, as I mentioned, that mission focus that I got in the Marine Corps, the leadership qualities that I had in the Marine Corps, will allow me to really advocate very well for House District 45, to work with people from different backgrounds.
Watson believes finding and working with people he disagrees with is key to representing his district if elected.
The point is not to try to triangulate and be perfectly in the middle of where everybody's at in the district and try to kind of placate and please everybody. It's to say, I am a Republican, I'm a conservative Republican, that is my philosophy, that's my value set, but that doesn't mean that I can't work on issues that matter to you in a way that actually gets them solved.
Finding that common ground with constituents is how Watson plans to build trust in District 45.
And so you've got to be comfortable speaking with people that disagree with you, and then finding not just common ground, but actual useful soil, useful ground for solving problems for these individuals.
One of the biggest issues facing District 45 is a proposed turnpike expansion that cuts right through the heart of the district. Watson says he is opposed.
Well, my stance on the issue is we've knocked over 9,000 doors in this district, okay? About 60% of the district or thereabouts is the rural area that's going to be affected by this turnpike. And with one unified voice, I mean, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, people that are political or apolitical are saying that they feel that the control of their state government is slipping out of their hands. You hear these stories of my constituents and they don't feel respected, they don't feel heard right now. My constituents have real questions about the financial sustainability, environmental impact, so on and so forth, of the turnpike in the state of Oklahoma. My job is to represent those legitimate concerns and questions and get the answers to them.
Another statewide issue Watson opposes, State Superintendent Ryan Walters' mandate for Bibles in all Oklahoma classrooms.
But when you start to mandate in the classroom, the scriptures, which me as a Christian, I uphold as some of the most sacred text and the fount for Western civilization itself. When you start to mandate that in the classroom, what you're going to do, number one, is demean the scripture, and number two, you're going to get parents, communities that feel that they are being forced and compelled to do something that our system, I think, was never intended to compel.
Yeah, and if Watson is elected this Tuesday, that will be the first public office he's ever held. Abby, Savannah.
Thanks, Michael. When we come back, we're going to hear from another candidate running for State House here in Norman.
Hear how his time as teacher shaped his goals in office.
Well, welcome back to OU Nightly's pre-election special.
Moving now to another State House race in Norman, we sat down with Representative Jacob Rosecrans to discuss his bid for re-election in House District 46.
OU Nightly's Willie Gillespie joins us from the Election Center. Willie, what's the representative's biggest policy goal for his next term?
Yeah, Representative Rosecrans is really focused on State Superintendent Ryan Walters and the State Department of Education. OU Nightly's own Olivia Hayes sat down with him to discuss his goals for his campaign.
What's your legislative plan for students and parents in your district, and maybe even including those at OU?
Well, first of all, people always ask me to impeach Ryan Walters, so let's just get that out of the way. That's an inherently political thing. Of course I support it. Unless the folks across the aisle support it, we can't get rid of him. That's the only way you can do it for a statewide elected officials. So that's the very first thing. And honestly, when I talk to people on the doors, Republicans, Independents, of course Democrats, and I ask them what their number one issue is, it is Ryan Walters, which is crazy because usually in presidential election years, it's something that is federal, right? It's like immigration or whatever. And the fact that it's not that this year is very interesting to me. I have so many ideas, outside the box ideas. Told you I don't like the education system. Don't want to throw it away or defund it with private school vouchers. Want to tear it down, make it more holistic, make sure that kids have the mental health resources that they need. And we can do that if we really invest in our public schools. Lean into the communities that these schools service. Honestly, when it comes to funding them, I think we should fully fund them, based upon the funding of the region. Like, let's be tops, right? We're not right now. And then kind of leave everybody alone. Let's let teachers teach, administrators administrate, stuff like that.
What are your thoughts regarding the ongoing issues at the Oklahoma Department of Mental and Substance Abuse, with embezzlement, Narcan vending machines, all of that?
Well, the way I look at it, first of all, I'm not going to blame everything on Governor Stitt. I can't. I would like to, because there's a lot of problems. Because when you elect somebody that has no experience in what they're elected to do, this is a lot of what you get. Let's not forget, too, the Republicans I work with decided to empower him to hire and fire the boards of the 5 highest appropriated agencies, which I think mental health is one of them. So it's kind of on him, because he's able to kind of create those boards to do what he wants. You're going to have these types of things when you have one party in charge, period. It happened when the Democrats were in charge too. We had corruption because there was no pushback. And if there was pushback, oh, it's just the Republicans being Republicans. Well, now we're like, no. We're legislators, we're duly elected, and we're trying to tell you there's problems here and needs to be fixed. Oh, you're just Democrats. So again, you've got to depoliticize things to be able to push towards progress. I've said it many times. I'm in the minority, I guess, on that. I don't know, but until you do that, I don't think we really can see progress, even in Department of Mental Health, DHS, wherever else.
Olivia Hayes with that report. Thank you, Olivia. Rosecrans is running for re-election in District 46 and has been in office since 2017. And Abigail, well, we weren't able to sit down with his opponent. You have some insight on his campaign.
That's absolutely right, Willie. OU Nightly reached out to the Republican candidate for District 46, Alexander Torvey, but we did not hear back from him. And according to his campaign website, Torvey, a construction planner who is from the Cleveland County area where he has lived the majority of his life, his website says he wants to fight inflation, increase teacher pay, and improve public safety. For a full list of his policy goals or positions, you can visit his website at torvey4ok.com.
And coming up, we'll hear about 2 candidates running for the state Senate.
One of them with a family connection to the office. The state Senate race for District 15 sees 2 candidates familiar to constituents going head-to-head for the seat. One with a well-known name and the other being former Norman City Councilwoman Elizabeth Foreman. OU Nightly's Olivia Hayes sat down with Foreman to talk policy and what sets her apart from her opponent.
How would you say you differ most from your opponent?
I think it's very apparent that one of us cares about doing what's right for Oklahomans and for families and trying to help people, and then the other one wants to play into this rhetoric. With her, repeatedly, it's, I'm not going to work with a rhino. I'm not going to work with this. You know, it's very standoffish, and I think that shows a lack of leadership, right? Because a good leader is listening to everybody. A good leader knows that everybody needs to be at the table. You don't have to agree with them, but you need to hear them because you represent people different from you also.
What's your legislative plan for students and parents in your district, and then maybe also even including people here at OU?
In the last 20 years, every budget revenue failure that the state of Oklahoma has had, they've cut it from education first. We cannot do that. We are creating problems at the foundation and then asking why we're a welfare state. Pick yourself up from your own bootstraps. Well, I don't know, I can't get an education. You don't care if I drop out of school because I'm in a rural community and you don't see me, right? That's very scary and very dangerous. So we need to make sure that we're putting all the money into our education, into our children, because they're our future.
And what's your thought on the proposed turnpike expansion?
Okay, so the proposed turnpike, one is very personal because Ward 6, the ward that I was the council member for, the east-west expansion took out a lot of my ward. And then it was very personal because the north-south takes out my mother. She's 73 years old, she's a widow. My father died in this house. Maybe not the best memory, but he died in this house. And now you just want to take it out and put it in a turnpike, right? Like so many other people. 5% of the population of Noble will be taken out by this turnpike. 5% of the population is actually an egregious number with no thought, no concern, thinking they can do this. I think it's sick. We're talking about the livelihood of people. There's a humanity factor that is completely overlooked. There's no comparable house or land for my mom. She's on 10 acres. She's not finding that for the price that they would try to take her property from. And nobody can. So we'll have people have to leave our community because there's no comparable land.
Do you think you'd motivate, voters going into the polls to, I guess, vote outside of their party?
Just look at the quality and the character of the candidates. And if you don't want to vote for me, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not If that's, your conscience, then that's will of the people. And if I lose, then I accept that. But don't just vote for a party. Like, we cannot do that anymore.
Foreman has served 4 years on the Norman City Council. She also has experience in public administration, law enforcement, public education, and healthcare.
Republican Lisa Standridge is also running for Senate District 15. OU Nightly attempted to set up an interview with Standridge, but did not hear back. Standridge's husband currently serves as the incumbent senator for District 15. However, he is term limited. According to her campaign website, Standridge hopes to crack down on illegal immigration, eliminate the state income tax, improve support for veterans, and more. To view Standridge's complete list of issues and policy goals, visit standridgeforsenate.com.
Well, coming up after the break, we're going to hear from Oklahoma Congressman Tom Cole.
And we'll hear about the woman who's run against him multiple times. Thanks for sticking with us. Congressman Tom Cole has been a staple in Oklahoma politics for the last 40 years. OU Nightly's Madeline Hoffman got a chance to talk with Cole about this year's race and his Democratic challenger, Mary Brannon.
Ladies, that's right. Representative Tom Cole is running to represent Oklahoma's 4th Congressional District. We spoke with Cole about what he thinks it will take to win the seat again.
So your number one job is get out the Republican vote. If you get out the Republican vote and you hold your own team, so to speak, you're not likely to lose to a Democrat in this district.
Cole believes that his campaign relies heavily on his congressional experience.
But you also try and make the point, you're chairman of the Appropriations Committee, there's unique things you can do for your district, for your state, for the things that you believe in that, quite frankly, a freshman legislator of either party is not going to be able to replicate.
In April, Cole became the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, putting him in charge of regulating government spending. This marks the first time an Oklahoman has ever held the position. And when it comes to goals, one of Cole's top priorities is keeping District 4 in mind on the committee.
Biggest goal will be to try and keep the appropriations process working. We have a huge interest in Oklahoma in that. This district in particular with Tinker Air Force Base, Fort Sill, Army Post, National Weather Center at OU, Kerr Water Labs at Ada. We have a large Indian hospital in Lawton.
And another top policy agenda for Cole, national defense.
We all have, sense of national priorities, and I think for me, defense is always number one. I think particularly right now, we live in an extraordinarily dangerous world, and I would argue we've invested in defense in recent years, particularly the last administration.
In this election cycle, border security and immigration are on the minds of many voters. And Cole is set on reforming the southern border during a potential next term.
We have a crisis on the southern border. Job number one is make the border secure. When you do that, then you can have, I think, a reasoned discussion about what's appropriate immigration reform. But they want it done by the law. They want it done in a controlled fashion.
And Cole's final message to voters is one of optimism, a rarity in such a politically polarized time.
Be optimistic about the future of the country, and that doesn't matter if your side wins or loses. We're a relatively young country. We're an ancient democracy. And I will tell you, as an old baby boomer, I have a lot more confidence in this generation than in my generation.
If elected, this would be Cole's 12th consecutive term representing District 4. Abigail, Savannah, back to you.
Thanks, Madeline. Democrat Mary Brannon is challenging Representative Tom Cole for the 4th Congressional District. If Brannon unseats Cole, it would be her first time in political office. According to her campaign website, a top policy for Brannon is to prevent privatizing the Department of Veteran Affairs. She also wants to reverse tax cuts for the wealthy and ensure that Social Security and Medicare are maintained.
And coming up, we'll discuss how 2 state questions could impact Oklahomans.
And hear about how early voting could play a major role this election cycle.
This November, there are 2 state questions on Oklahoma ballots.
Both questions are constitutional amendments proposed by state lawmakers and approved by Governor Kevin Stitt to appear on the ballot. The first measure on the ballot is State Question 833. The question asks voters permission to allow the creation of public infrastructure districts. To pass, the amendment requires 100% approval from surface property owners within a proposed district. A town or city would then have to approve it. Supporters say it would allow property owners to sell bonds for funding improvements like sidewalks, water lines, sewers, and roads. Critics say the measures could harm public institutions like schools due to homeowners intending to cut taxes.
And State Question 834 is the second ballot measure. The question will clarify whether non-citizens can vote in the state. No cities in Oklahoma currently allow non-citizen voting. If passed, the measure would not fundamentally change state law. Opponents argue the question is anti-immigrant, but supporters say it clarifies the law.
With the 2024 general election just days away, early voting has begun around the state of Oklahoma.
More voters have turned out in Cleveland County than anywhere else in the state, with nearly 6,000 ballots being cast.
For registered voters in Oklahoma, you have until November 2nd to vote early. And in Cleveland County, voters can vote at the Sooner Mall, the Moore Public Library, the Moore Norman Technology Center, and the Noble Public Library.
And thank you for tuning in to our OU Nightly special pre-election coverage.
Be sure to follow us on social media and tune in weekdays at 4:30 for the latest on the 2024 election. Good night, and be sure to get your vote out there.